remember we said everyone isn't lost unless you do these 4 things. Belief in righteous deeds, we have to do, even if we're alone. The next 2, we need community. Real community. Just because you have a masjid doesn't mean you build community. Inshallah, you have community here. Most of our communities are not communities. They're just masjids. Community is where the hearts are together. Community is where you don't just say salam at Jummah or Eid. And you hug. The only time you hug your brother and sisters on Eid, you don't have a community. It's a general rule. Community is where people really take care of each other. وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And tawaso in Arabic, as you can learn when you learn Arabic, is the tafa'ala form. It means to do something together. You can't do it alone. Truth cannot be done alone. You know, Cornel West said something beautiful. He said, justice is when you take love and you make it public. That's justice. You take love and you make it public. Truth has to be done as a community. You cannot hold truth in your own heart, because over time you'll fall and break. You can only hold it as a group. Like, you know, when the Prophet ﷺ, when there was the black stone and he had everyone hold a corner, truth has to be held with everyone holding a corner. No one person can hold it by themselves. And truth is not Islam only. What I mean by that is, it's not one name. Truth is a thing that is bigger than us. Like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf said, I will stand for truth, whether it's with the Muslims or against the Muslims. Truth is where this is our deen. If we did something wrong, we would go into the courtroom. The prosecutor will not need to bring a witness, because we would go and we would speak out against ourselves. That's truth. Bigger than us. Imam Siraj Wahad said, when he thought he was going to die, he was on his deathbed, he said he had this idea that came to his head. He said there's 2 types of people. Imagine a grocery store. One person goes in and they buy things based on brand names. So if they want macaroni and cheese, they'll get Kraft. If they want yogurt, they'll get Dannon or something like that. If they're fancy, they'll get Stonyfield, organic. Okay. They look at the brand name. He said that we should be people that turn around the box, look into the ingredients. He said we should treat people not based on brand name, but based on their ingredients of their soul. No names, no labels, but that's truth. Coming together in truth. Truth is difficult. And I'll end with this. They have to also come together in patience, because this path is going to be very difficult. Someone once said, oh, you know, Islam is actually very easy, mashallah. And the scholar said to him, that means you're not really doing it. It's not supposed to be easy. The Sirat al-Mustaqim is straight, but it's not flat. It's like this. There's nothing about Sirat al-Mustaqim that said it was flat. We just thought it was like it. It's a multi-lane highway, it's not a narrow path, and it goes up. It is tough because we are marching up to Jannah. It's not going to be easy. And if it's easy, that means we're doing the wrong thing. We're chilling too much. And if we chill, we end up in a non-chill place. Hell. Non-chill. The last thing is, the reason sabr is so important here is it shows us the balance. Look, listen to this carefully. We start off by talking about Allah. Then we talk about being good to other people, doing righteous deeds, right? Amanu is what? Believing in Allah. Amal salihat, is that to Allah or to people? To people. We do good deeds for people. What sabr deals with purifying the heart. And that is the balance of the believer, the 3 things we need. Connection to heaven, connection to our heart, connection to humanity. H. Heaven, heart, humanity. That's the 3D spirituality. Without that, you have 1-dimensional or 2-dimensional Islam. You need all 3 to be balanced. And we see this in the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَيْثُمَا كُنْتُمْ وَأَتْبَعُوا السَّيِّئَةَ حَسَنَةً تَمْحُوهَا وَخَلِقِ النَّاسِ بِخُلْقٍ حَسَنٍ. Have taqwa of Allah wherever you are, heaven. Replace a bad deed with a good deed, it'll replace it, heart. Treat people in the best way possible, humanity. All of that is in Surah Asr. All of this and much more. I'll end with one last point. Why is it so important then to know Arabic? I'll end with one last point. And my next talk, inshallah, I'm coming back in 2 weeks, we just confirmed this. I'm going to be giving a talk, like I did on Surah Asr, on the entire prayer. Every step of the prayer, how we get the inner meaning by knowing the meaning. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this again. I'm in Pennsylvania, but I'll be coming back down to do 2 days of that talk wherever people want me to do it, inshallah. And for me, this talk, if you heard this talk and you found it beneficial, even if you want me to do it in your living room, it's not about numbers for me. Let me know after, let Fawaqi know, we can do this talk for 3 people in your living room. It's not about numbers, it's about quality. It's about one person being touched. I'll end with this. This is why it's so important for us to know Arabic. All of the meanings I just said is literally, this is half the time I took on my last talk. I had to cut things short because, it's getting late. And that is 1/10 of the meaning we could explore of Surah Asr. It could go on forever. But think about this. Compare what we just talked about to the following. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. By time. Verily man is in loss. Except those who believe, do righteous deeds, and join together in truth, and join together in patience. That is how we're experiencing our deen. And it's not going to work. There will be no feeling. There will be no animation. We will be like scarecrow Muslims. We look like people and we're empty inside. We'll read the Quran and we won't feel it. Our hearts will not shake. We will. I know. Like before I learned any Arabic, I used to always wonder when you're praying Tarawih. Have you ever wondered this? You're praying and the person next to you is crying, and you know they don't know any Arabic. I'm like thinking to myself, they shouldn't be thinking about him. Why are they crying? And when you don't know Arabic, you know how you experience the prayer? How you experience the Quran? How most of us do, or at least we did. Many of us still do. We know like 3 or 4 Arabic words, like Musa, Firaun. And as we're listening to the prayer, we're waiting for one of those words. Kitab. This surah has to do with the book. And we're trying to remember which stories have to do with the book. Too many examples, you don't know. Then we hear Firaun. Ooh, now we know where we are at. Firaun. I think Musa's going to come next. Lisan. What? That means tongue. I think this is the part where Musa... We have no idea what's going on. We're listening, and this is the only language where people learn how to read it before they learn how to speak it. A child can speak English before they can read it. The most important language we decided was a good idea to learn how to read it and not know what it means. Never has that happened. Imagine, someone comes, let's say from Indonesia. Someone comes to Indonesia to this masjid, and they just came. You're like, oh, do you speak English? They look at you and say, to be or not to be? That is the question. And they're memorized it. And they have perfect tajweed. They pronounce it well. Good pronounce. And you're like, wow, they know Shakespeare. And then they start singing, hello from the other side. Like they even know our music. And then they go on and on. They're memorizing for hours. And they're speaking like this. And they memorize hundreds of pages. And they have perfect pronunciation. You say, how did you learn such great English? Then they look at you like this. And you realize they have no idea what they just said. But they memorize it, and they can read it perfectly. They're reading the newspaper. So Hillary Clinton is losing to Bernie Sanders in the future. Hillary Clinton lost to Bernie Sanders because people realize she's a complete fake. Oh, interesting. Then they realize all politicians are fake. So they're reading that like, that's so interesting. And then he looks up at you and says, yeah, and then you say, isn't that crazy? And you're like, it's the only language like this. I'll end with one last point. This is why it's important to learn Arabic. Now, whether we learn it with Fawaqid, this is, I think, the only Arabic program in the city. It's not about Fawaqid. It's about Arabic. It's about the Quran. It's about Allah. We're not here to call to an organization. We're here to call to Allah. So if you want to go to Bayina in Dallas, that's wonderful. If you want to go to Qasid in Jordan, that's wonderful. In this city, the reason this organization started, because of my older brother, I know how it started. I was in Jordan, he was in Syria. We went overseas. Brother Omari was in Jordan with us. The same program before I was there. He was thinking to himself, this is a year before Bayina. Why don't we have this in the US? At the time, there was not one program like this in the US. How can we not learn Arabic? We have to go overseas. For the cost of the plane ticket, you can attend the whole program. While going to school. And the fact that more people are not doing this is a big problem. And we have to ask ourselves, when something like this exists, maybe we didn't know, now we know. I want to ask, after this presentation, how many people want to learn the language of the Quran? Raise your hand. Keep your hand up if you make the intention to learn. But don't put your hand up if you're not serious, because I'm going to say something next. This is not one of those fundraising things like, give me $10,000. Keep your hand up. It's not for me, this is for Allah. Keep your hand up, keep your hand up, keep your hand up. We should be more concerned about getting people to Allah than donations. So we don't use this for the right reason. Keep your hand up. If you have your hand up and you made an intention, and now there's a program in your city, and they have a policy that even if you can't afford it, you can come, which they do have that policy. then why aren't we all in this program? Unless the intention was not true. It's like the man who's in a house, the water comes up to his knees, and a boat comes and said, I'll save you. He said, I'm waiting for Allah. Allah will save you. He goes to the second floor, another boat comes. The whole place is going underwater. He's like, Allah will save you. Gets to the top of the house, another boat comes. Last chance, Allah will save you. He drowns. On the day of judgment, he said, Allah, I trusted you. I sent you 3 boats. Okay, we are in the ignorance of, in the token of time. Verily man is lost. We're not feeling it, we're not getting it. And we're going to go from that to knowing it, and we're going to leave the boat. This is not for them. They'll go to the boat somewhere else, and other people will jump out. This lifeboat from ignorance to light is here now. It's not in overseas. It's here in America. It's here in our city. They have 7 or 10 chapters in DC area alone. They have chapters 20 minutes. We had to go 2,000 miles, 5,000 miles, 20 minutes away, once a week. So we have to make this intention. I'll end with one last point. This is the last point. This will give an introduction to what we're going to talk about in 2 weeks. How this could affect our prayer, and I promise I'm done after this, inshallah. Even though I wish we had all night, but another day. Because people are trying to scowl. That's a good sign of it. Like, stop. Okay. I'm just kidding. This is the last point of why Arabic is so important. I'll give you a teaser of what Arabic could do to our prayer. This is what it did a little bit to the Quran. Now imagine if the entire Quran, we understood it like this. Imagine now if all the hadith we understood like this. You think it would not affect our hearts? It will. It will. Now, one small thing will end. When the Prophet ﷺ, when we're in ruku, when we come up, what do we say? Quickly? Sami Allahu liman hamidah. In the early days, the companions used to say, Allahu Akbar. In the early days. The Prophet ﷺ was in ruku one day. He's about to say, Allahu Akbar. Before. Allahu Akbar. Yeah. He was about to say, Allahu Akbar. And Abu Bakr is praying behind him. And he says, this is the day that Sami Allahu liman hamidah came into the prayer. Abu Bakr is in ruku. And he's saying, Subhan Rabbil Azim. But he says, Wa bihamdi also. And all praise. And it's okay to do this. He was the first one to ever say, and all praise. And he said it to himself. Because he was feeling it. In that moment, he wanted to say, Alhamdulillah to Allah. So he said to himself, Abu Bakr said, Radiallahu anhu, Subhan Rabbil Azim, Wa bihamdi. Wa bihamdi. And no one heard him except Allah, of course. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down Angel Jibreel in that moment to the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ is about to say Allahu Akbar. He whispers in his ear, don't say Allahu Akbar. He says, say this new phrase, Sami Allah liman hamidah. The Prophet ﷺ did it. Sami Allah, he didn't know why. He was told, he did it. He says, Sami Allahu liman hamidah. What does that mean? Allah heard the one who praised him. Why didn't we learn this? I learned this in my 20s. It would have changed. I think about hundreds, thousands of prayers, and I did not know why. The whole prayer we can learn like this when we know Arabic. That's what we're going to do in 2 weeks, inshallah. He says, Sami Allahu liman hamidah. In Abu Bakr's language, he's hearing it like this. And I'm telling you, nowhere in the US, I learned this in Turkey. Why? It's so basic. What are we teaching in our schools? Where the hands go in prayer, we're not teaching where the heart goes in prayer. Abu Bakr, in his own language, he's saying this. Glory be to Allah, the greatest, and all praise. Allah heard who praised him. He's so shocked that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just responded because he knows he just said wa bihamdi. He heard a direct response from Allah without even thinking. He would never talk in prayer. Without thinking, he just said aloud, Rabbana lakal hamd. To the Lord be all praise. He was saying, thank you for listening to me. And that became part of the prayer. This doesn't change everything. It changes everything. You will never hear Sami Allahu liman hamidah again the same way. You will never say Rabbana lakal hamd. So whenever we feel like no one is hearing us, even our own spouse doesn't get us maybe, our sibling, our friends, no one understands us. Sami Allahu liman hamidah, you cannot commit suicide after understanding this. Because you know Allah is listening. I am listening to you. When you say Rabbana lakal hamd, you're saying thank you. And like the poet Rumi said, is after we say thank you to Allah that we fall in love with Him. We fall into sujood. This is the aspect of our deen. Just like a body needs a soul, Our deen has a soul that brings it to life, and the life of the Quran, the soul of it, is in Arabic. It's bringing the inside meaning back to the outside form. We cannot just have the outside without the inside, or our deen will be dead. We will not feel it will not move us. This will bring the fire, just like the mountaintop when it was filled with fire, and Musa Islam went and spoke to his Lord. This will bring fire into our hearts. I know it's late, so I'll end with that. I'll recite Surah Asr one last time. Now I want everyone to close their eyes, and I'm going to close my eyes. And I want you to think of all the meanings, and I want you to imagine what would happen if the whole Quran was to open up to us like this. Everyone close their eyes. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Now, all the meanings we talked about, everyone recite it together and we'll be done for today. Everyone recite it together just with the purpose of letting the meanings enter our heart. Everyone together? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr. Jazakallah khair. Thank you, brother, for having us. If anybody is first, please, this is a new masjid. Most importantly, support your masjid. These type of things don't happen if we don't support our institutions. That's the first thing. Secondly, if you're interested now in learning Arabic and Quran, the brother is here. Commit to this. There are classes all over the area happening. There's summer programs. There's evening classes. I'm not part of Fawaqi, my brother is, but I know what is done for thousands of people. So commit to learning Arabic. It will change your life, and the opportunity is here. Everyone, about 50 of you raised your hand and made the intention. Make your intention real by taking the ship that's ahead of you. Jazakallah khair.
Inshallah. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Brother Saad. How many of you received today? Inshallah. So, Brother Saad mentioned about the ocean. The Quran is like an ocean. And what we're doing right now is probably just playing at the beach with some little water. Oh, we found something here, we found something there. If you go to the middle of the ocean on the boat, you see different fish. You go a little bit deeper, you see more things. So that's how you find with the Quran, the more you go with Arabic, the more knowledge, and you just learn more. You never finish learning, actually. So, do you want to open a few Q&A? It's 9:30, I guess we give 10 minutes, if anybody have any questions. So we open with 3 Q&A.
I wanted to introduce Brother Umari. Mashallah, he is one of our core team members at Fawaqi. He does a lot of the outreach in helping students be part of Fawaqi and creating not just learning, but learning communities. So I wanted him to share a little bit of that and what he's doing and some of the experiences he's had. If anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand about, I know you've been motivated to learn, a lot of you want to join. We want to talk about how now, not just why, that was the why. We want to talk about how. If you have questions, any questions you have, if it's for the group, you can ask as a group. If you want to ask us personally, myself, Brother Omari, we're available here to answer your questions for brothers and for sisters. If you have any questions about how to get involved, how to start your learning journey, we can talk about that. I also have one sister I wanted to point out in this group. So for Fawaqi, we have 2 approaches, right, for learning. We want to make it accessible. One, if there's a class that's there, right now we have a class, we just came from Foggy Bottom. Who knows where Foggy Bottom is? In Washington, George Washington University, we have a class there, beginner, intermediate, advanced. We have class in Herndon, class in Gaithersburg, we have class starting, we have class in Baltimore, we have class in Falls Church, we have class a lot of different places in this area. If there's not a class nearby you, what you can do is you can set up a class. If you have 10 students that are interested in learning, we will set up a class wherever you're at, whether it's a masjid, whether it's an institution like this, whether it's a campus, whether it's even some people will set up class in their home for their friends and their family if they want to. So that's our goal, inshallah. So there is a sister that's in this audience right now that she found out that there's not a class in her area. And so she spoke to me just 1 week ago and has pulled together a number of her friends and people that want to start a class, and they'll be starting a class in Columbia, Maryland, inshallah. And so if you want a Columbia, Maryland location, inshallah, raise your hand, Sister Nirman. And Sister Amal also works with her to do that. So basically, anyone who wants to set up this class, we will help you facilitate, or you can join a current class. It's easier to set up and join a current class that's already going, but we want to help you learn in your own area. And if you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, we have different tests that you can take to determine which level you'll be to start your Arabic journey. I wanted to pass it on to Brother Omari.
Assalamu alaikum. I really don't want to take up too much of your time. We've been here for quite some time, and I think most of the things have been already said. So I'll just leave you with just one hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and of course any questions we'll just answer afterwards. But the Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Khayrukum man ta'allama al-Qur'ana wa 'allamahu." That the best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. So I think being a part of Fawaki, this is a blessing, and we just want to pass on that khair, pass on that good to you all. So having a small group, I think this is a big community. MashaAllah, this is a really blessed community that I've just come this today for the first time. I'm really impressed. I didn't know this community was here. We could have a class here, right? And I think if we can get that started within the next 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks, whatever the time frame that works out, it just takes a commitment, and we can actually get commitment from the people that are here today, inshallah. So if you really want this to happen, let's commit to learning the Quran today, inshallah. And what that means is to put that into action. Is for you to actually come speak to us, and for us to get your information, for us to know, for me to connect with Brother Oscar, and for us to make a plan to make this happen in the near future, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Are there any questions?
Oh, yes, questions.
I'll get the mic on.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for all of you and for those who organized this event. It was a very educational night. I learned a lot. And so, my question is now, this is your start is very important and impressive. Why I say that? Because many of the time, like, Quran has been a very static thing, to others, especially in the Western society. You bring it, and the whole thing is people come from another country, and it's not communicating with the young. So it's only there in the secretive way, like the Arabic language, both they know. Sorry. The main important is how the future will hold for the Muslims here. Because our kids, the young generation, has to receive Islam as a moving religion. It's not very static, and it's moving. And you have to bring like this Western-minded Muslim scholars. Like, my sheikh, it's online sheikh, is Yasir Qadi. I listen to him very often, and also Khan. What I'm saying is, like, this program is very wonderful. It has to be supported in many ways. I mean, it's not, and we have to move from being a student to teaching, and also by proper training, So what is your, like, manpower, how you address this thing, That's why, we need it very desperately in this community, So Brother Oscar was telling me a year ago about this, and he's very much orthodox on this, So like, how can we spread this word for other communities also? That's very important, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, brother. Definitely come talk to us, get involved. We can use people with energy like yourselves or anyone else. I'll let Brother Mario answer that.
So Ismail Ibn Ali, he's one of the Fawaki staff members. Also Miriam Kazmi, they're also staff members as well as instructors. They actually learned through Fawaki. But they came learning through Fawaki. So ideally, someone from this community would ideally be an instructor. Inshallah, perhaps Oscar. So all we're doing is just empowering individuals to get the tools to understand what the Quran is saying. That's it. We're just giving the tools, and then those tools get passed on. Inshallah. So that's a very good question. Anyone else have another question about Fawaki, the program, anything logistic-wise, or something about what it is that we do? Follow.
I speak for mainly for the other teams and such. How well do we have to know the Quran to be part of this and fully understand what? Do we need to know, how much tajweed do we need to know?
Tajweed. So we actually have a tajweed program. Alhamdulillah, that's something we can also bring in to the community. But ultimately, it's the language itself to understand the language of the Quran, as opposed to the style and the eloquence of how we're pronunciating the letters. It's more so understanding the meaning of the Quran, as you heard today with Surah Al-Asr. But we can offer tajweed class as well. So we're not limiting it to just learning Quranic Arabic. Alhamdulillah, we do offer a range of different courses, but ultimately it's understanding the meaning of the Mus'haf.
I think he's asking what is the prerequisite, how much this year?
How much do you have to know as a prerequisite? So you need to be able to open up the Quran and perhaps understand how to at least read it. Can you connect the letters? Do you understand what the words, the letters look like in the middle, the beginning, and the end?